Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's edition of the AAA Hole podcast. I, of course, am a AAA Hole Death Witch. And today, I got a few topics to cover here. Going to keep it as like a community discussion this week. So if you're watching the live stream, be sure to leave those comments. And if you're listening on the go, thank you for putting me in your ear hole, for taking me on your morning jog, your morning commute, wherever it is we're going. I've covered Google Stadia almost ad nauseum here, so this isn't specifically Stadia related, but I do want to drill home the fact that game streaming is going to become a thing. They are pushing for it pretty hard, and Stadia success or fail aside, this is still going to happen. So the fight here isn't really whether or not you'll be owning your games, and your fight here isn't against Stadia. If you don't want game streaming to happen, you just, look, I'll be honest with you, you're just shit out of luck. Okay, it's just gonna fucking happen. There's way too much for them to gain from a business standpoint for it not to happen. And the question here isn't whether or not you want it to happen, but how you want it to happen. I mean, you can fight back against it all you want, sure, and I'll concede. I'll agree that physical copies of games, or ownership copies of games rather, games you download yourself, games you can play locally, they're probably never going to go away. Just like with Netflix and movies, traditional movies that you own haven't gone away. You know, you can still buy physical copies of most movies. You can, still buy digital versions and download them. That's probably not going to go away here with game streaming either. But Microsoft and Sony have announced a partnership. They are working together to make game streaming a thing, to make it a much bigger thing than it already is. And that's probably not going to change. If those two are willing to work together, then they're pushing pretty hard for it. It's not just, Xbox making its extreme platform to try to combat Google. It's not just Google making a stream platform. Sony is actively working with Microsoft to help them make streaming a thing, and then they're going to help use that technology to launch their own. So they're all working together. So they're trying to more or less standardize streaming. It's not so much about whether or not streaming is possible and which company can individually make it better or make it feasible or make it work. It's about them all working together to make it work. They have decided that this needs to become an industry standard, and they've all decided to work together here. Google has the infrastructure and the means to do some pretty impressive streaming here, and PlayStation and Microsoft are working together to build something that can compete with Google that they're going to share. So game streaming is going to become a thing even if Stadia fails. There's every hand in the household is in the cookie dish at this point. So the question is, how do you want game streaming to be done? Do you want it to be like the Netflix of gaming, where you pay a monthly fee and you get a offering of games that you can play at no extra charge? They're just all part of that package. You just, similar to how PlayStation Now does it. On PlayStation Now, there's nothing additional to buy. You pay $20 a month and you can play 750-ish titles, ranging all the way back from PS1 to PS4. And some are available for download, some aren't. But downloading aside, you can just click a button and play the game. Google Stadia, it's all streaming. There's nothing to download, nothing to buy ever. Is that the model you prefer? Where there's no upfront cost, no hardware to buy, nothing to get in on the ground floor except access to the service, which is free. But since it's free, you buy the games individually. So you're still paying $60 for your games, but you're not paying $500, maybe more, in hardware and accessories, depending on how many controllers you want and what kind of headset you want and all those extras. You could easily spend $500 more if you're trying to build a PC to game on. So is that what you want? Do you want to just put 100% of your budget into just buying your games and then just keeping the game you have forever so you can go back to it whenever you feel like it? Do you prefer games to be more like rentals and you just not have a copy you get to keep, or you pay, like EA Access or you play Plus, which are all going to be on Google Stadia. They're going to be kind of like Hulu does its add-ons, where you pay for Hulu and you get all the shows and all the movies, but then you can pay extra and have HBO, and you can pay extra and have live television, and you can pay extra and have, Stars and all those premium channels. So Google Stadia is going to work a lot like that. The free version gets you 1 or 2 free games a month. They get added to your library, like Destiny 2 is what they're launching with. And then if you want more stuff to stream without having to buy, you could subscribe to EA Access and get, EA's games without having to buy them. You just pay a monthly fee and then you get to play them. Now that's a pretty good service. I'll admit I played that. I subscribed to EA Access on PC back when Anthem launched to play Anthem without paying $60 for Anthem. So I literally subscribed to it for one game. I paid $15 and I got to play 30 days of Anthem. That was enough to let me know I didn't want to buy Anthem. So it saved me money. It saved me headache, and I was damn glad I used the service. I don't like throwing praise at EA, but when they do something right, they do something right. And EA Access is done right. The library's solid. There's lots there to play, new and old. And if they keep putting their big new releases up there as part of their service, yeah, I think a lot of people would subscribe to that. Because the ability to play a new AAA game without having a $60 price tag or having pre-orders shoved in your face, it feels good. It really does. There's no more buyer's remorse. I don't feel like I'm getting fucking cheated the whole time. And yeah, we can have the ownership argument, but that's why I say the traditional methods aren't going to go away. Ownership will probably still be an option for those people that want that option, but for those people like me who don't want to waste $60 on a game that may turn out to suck. I've always used rentals for that reason, because games don't do demos anymore. Games don't let you try before you buy anymore, and that's the potential you could have with a streaming service, is to bring that back. Back in the day, it was Blockbuster Video. People have always wanted this. Back in the day, it was Blockbuster Video. I'd go to Blockbuster, I'd rent a game, I'd take it home, I'd try it a couple days, and if I liked it, I took it back to Blockbuster. I went to Walmart, I went to GameStop, I went to wherever, and I bought the game. So yeah, I ended up spending more money in the end, but if I didn't like it, I lost $5. Who cares? Alright, but then Blockbuster got shut down. Now, luckily there are still places you can rent even physical copies of games to this day, even though Blockbuster's gone out of business. The selection's horrible and there's not many. Redbox I used most recently at the launch of Street Fighter V to rent for one night for $2 a copy of Street Fighter V. Went to the Redbox, I used the machine, I got my Street Fighter V, took it home, I popped it in my PlayStation. And I was so glad. I was very looking forward to that game, and I was so glad I did not waste $60 on it. I wasted $2 because I popped Street Fighter V into my system, and it said half the menu said coming soon. Half the main menu of a new release game was not in the game. Wasn't even ready yet. You just bought a $60 early access title. I felt sorry for everyone who had spent $60 on Street Fighter V to buy it at release, to own it. Because you've got to be online now. And you've got to wait for the rest of your game to come out so you can download it. Because the other argument against streaming is, oh, well, now I have to be online to game, You see that happening more and more with the release of physical games, is them not giving you the full game. You think this is an accident? Of course this is intentional. It's a clever way to force you to get online with your game, to force you to stay online with that game, is to sell you a $60 game and drip feed you the full game instead of giving it to you all at one time. And I'll agree with all the people mad about it. It damn well should be illegal. Because it's absolutely fucking ridiculous. So with Stadia, you're buying the games, and you get to keep them in your library forever with services like, you know, Origin Access, EA Access. You get more of a rental. So we're in a vote with your money situation where you have to decide, which one do you want more? Do you want which one do you want more? Do you want to have the games in a library, in a collection like you do on Steam, or would you rather have the rental option and have it be the Netflix of gaming? And then you decide which one you want, and you vote with your wallet. Because game streaming is not going away. Microsoft's going to do it. PlayStation's already doing it. Stadia's coming. It's going to do it. Nintendo's probably going to be the only oddball out, but that's just always Nintendo. And we'll probably see more game streaming services show up. You know, some on PC. In fact, Google will run on a PC. You can just run it in a Chrome web browser. But it is kind of nice to not have to pay for any of those hardware costs. So game streaming has its merits. But you have to decide which business model you want game streaming to happen. Because fighting back against it and saying you don't want it to be a thing at all, even if no one buys Google Stadia, no one subscribes to the service, no one uses it, game streaming is still coming. This is still, they're not going to stop pushing for this to be a thing. Every time the business model fails, you're just going to go back to the drawing board and try again. At best, you can delay the inevitable. So I think it's better to accept the inevitable and help shape what it becomes instead of having it forced on you the way they want it. Show them what works, show them what doesn't. Vote with your wallet. Go here and tell them you want this, but you're not willing to pay for this. And I think if Stadia or, you know, Xbox's service or PlayStation service all want to really test the waters with this, the best thing for them to do is to give all available options on their platform at the same time, and then run the numbers. You know, do that for a year, and then run the numbers at the end of the year. Find out what made the most money. Find out what people want. Watch the market evolve around you by giving people options. You know, there should be that Netflix style gaming option where you pay a monthly fee and you can play all the games you want. But then you should also have the option to buy on your service so people can just buy it at a discount. If you're a subscriber and you already played the game on the streaming service and you decide you don't, you know, you want to permanently add that to your, because that's what everybody else's other worry is that games will be removed from the service. You know, and that the library will constantly be changing. It's the same way Netflix takes down shows and they add new ones, and you know that's constantly changing. They fear the same for digital games, and that's one of the things that irritates people on Netflix is that they don't get to help control when those movies or shows get up or taken down, and then they get mad because they put something in their watch later list to watch it later, and when they finally get around to watching it, it's not there anymore. People wanted, and I think if Netflix had the option for people to permanently add something to their stream list, even if it gets taken off the store for an extra fee, people would probably use it. So Stadia or PlayStation or Xbox should use that same model. They should have their streaming service and then have the option to permanently add to list. So that if that game ever gets taken off their service or removed from the streaming side of things, from the monthly subscription side of things, I should say, then you won't lose it in your library. You paid extra to make sure that even if it's no longer part of the subscription, it'll still be part of your library. And I think that's the best way to, and then don't charge $60 for that, you know, charge 40 or charge whatever, but give a discount on it. Maybe based on playtime, you know, the more you played it or how old the game is or whatever, you know. So the options are kind of there on Stadia for that to work. Except you have to decide, do you want, but it has the potential for the data to be skewed because it's going to launch with EA Access and it's going to launch with Uplay Plus. And those are subscription-based streaming services where you get that play any game in our library for one low monthly fee. So you get the Netflix of gaming, but it's not all gaming. It's only EA gaming, or only Uplay gaming. So yeah, they could look at that data at the end and go, well, EA Access has more subscribers than, Stadia Pro, so people want, has more subscribers than we have, more users using EA Access than we do buying our games. People want streamable games. And maybe that's true. Or you could end up saying, well, there's less people using their streaming service and more people buying games. So people prefer to buy and own their games digitally and just have them streamed to them. And while some of that may be true, the fact that you're using EA and letting other companies run the streaming side of things to determine whether or not a subscription-based model is better is kind of skewed, because I may not subscribe. I may prefer a subscription-based service to play my games, but I may not subscribe to EA Access because I don't like EA games. I may not subscribe to Uplay Plus because I don't play Uplay games. I don't play Assassin's Creed. I don't play Ghost Recon Wildlands. I don't play EA games. Nothing in their library interests me. The only real way to get that data and to find out which model people prefer and how to make this work is to run that service yourself. It's for Google to partner with these people and bring you indie games, bring you AAA games, bring you a library that includes new releases of games that you can access for a flat monthly fee. So there's some kinks that need to be worked out on the streaming side of things, but I just wanted to bring that up. I just wanted to let people know that there is no getting rid of streaming. I understand right now there's a Google hate train going around. It has left the station. People are on board this Google hate train. Just typing in the word Stadia in YouTube gets you hordes of videos about why it's going to fail and how people don't want streaming to be a thing. But it's going to be a thing. It's going to be a thing. I can't count the number of comments where people are going, it's never going to be a thing. No, it's going to be a thing. People said that shit about Netflix, and it became a thing. Okay, Blockbuster said that about Netflix way back when Netflix first started streaming. Netflix tried to sell to Blockbuster. They were going to sell to Blockbuster and say, hey, this is what we built, make us an offer. They were introducing the streaming thing, and Blockbuster had no interest in it. They were trying to partner with them and get them to invest, get Blockbuster to invest in Netflix and get in on the ground floor, and Blockbuster turned them down and said, people want that. That'll never become the standard. Well, goddamn it if it didn't become the standard. And then Blockbuster had to struggle to catch up. They even started their own streaming service for a while. None of it helped. You either get in on the ground floor and you be the guy leading the pack, or you get left behind. And all these companies right now are fighting to be that. They're fighting to be that company that leads the pack. That first one that does it right. The big name in streaming. The big name in streaming movies is Netflix. Everyone knows it. It has the most customers. Everyone uses it. Xbox, PlayStation, Google, they all want to be that for gaming. And they're all in their work the kinks out phase right now. And where your money goes will help determine what kinks get worked out and where this market ends up. So vote with your wallet. That's all I'm telling you. It's don't fight the stream. Embrace it. Drop that mindset that everyone seems to have that it has to be one or the other, because normal ways of playing games, being able to download and play on your own hardware if you're a PC enthusiast, being able to buy physical copies and play on your console if you're a console game, that's not going to go away. That hasn't gone away from movies. It hasn't gone away from music. It's not going to go away for gaming. You're still going to have that option. Just know that streaming is going forward going to be an option. All these companies are pushing for it. So help shape the other option to be the best it can be, and use both. I do. I use both. I have a Blu-ray collection downstairs of the movies I absolutely loved enough to buy at full price. And the rest I watch on Netflix. Same thing with my games. If I like a game enough, I'll buy the physical copy, make sure I always have that game. The rest I catch on sale or get digitally, with the understanding that if Steam ever shut down, I'd probably lose access to all those games. That if Activision decides that they're going to shut down servers for a game, I lose that game. I could lose my library of games on any one of these digital storefronts. Not just Steam, not just Google Stadia, not just Xbox, not just PlayStation, all of them. I could lose them at any point in time. I don't think Stadia will be good unless we wait at least 3 to 5 years. I'm gonna push back on that one, because I've been doing the streaming video games thing since it became a thing. I was a subscriber to OnLive in 2010. And I remember back in 2010, people were saying this company isn't big enough, they can't handle it. And they were right. The company went under 2 years later. So for 2 years, I streamed. 2 years later, they sold parts of their company to different companies. PlayStation bought some of it. That's where PlayStation Now came from, where you can stream. PlayStation bought some of their technology. Some other companies bought some stuff. But it was okay in 2010. Your internet had to be kind of extreme, and it was choppy. It was very much a work in progress in 2010, and all the comments you saw for stuff like that were, well, the technology just isn't there yet. You can literally go back to articles on Kotaku. In fact, I got some linked on the YouTube version of the last week's episode of the podcast. You can see I put an article up from 2012 from when OnLive shut down. And you can go back to that article, and you can read the article if you want. It's a lot of business stuff that caused it to break down, and they're just breaking down why it failed. It's an interesting read, but it has a lot less to do with the actual game and technology than it does just poor decisions in management and a CEO stealing money. But anyway, you can skip the article if you want and just go down to the comments, and you can see people in the comments going, where, this technology is interesting. I like this idea, but it's not ready yet. I wish there were a number of people who wished and agreed, and this name came up a lot. A number of people going, I wish a big company like Google, who had the money to support it and the infrastructure to support it, would buy this now that it's for sale, and over the course of the next 10 years could turn it into something great. This could work. Maybe in 10 years, maybe in 5-10 years. Well, you know what? It's been almost 10 years, and I think we're ready. I honestly do. You can find videos of people playing Stadia before Stadia launched, or before it was announced.
Sup, witches?
Thank you for the follow, Zimmertrax. But before Stadia was announced, Google did what they called Project Stream, which was basically their test for Google Stadia. And you could play it directly. You could play they only did one game. It was Assassin's Creed Odyssey. They did it for the launch of Odyssey as a way to help promote that game too. So they had Ubisoft's backing. But anyway, that was the game you played. You could play Assassin's Creed Odyssey directly on your Chrome web browser with no download, and people could do that for free and test it out. And it had all these different internet requirements, and it told you all the technical specs. It told you what resolution you were playing in, number of frames per second you were getting, what the lag and the latency and everything was. And a lot of people tried it, and you can find a lot of videos on YouTube back before Stadia was announced, back before everybody jumped on the hate train, honest reviews of how much they liked the idea and how well it played. And it did pretty well. Well enough that they decided to move forward with it. So I should tell you something. No, it wasn't perfect, but that was when it was in its project phase. It's probably improved since then. So I do have high hopes for it. I think the technology is ready and can be done right. I understand people's skepticism, but being as how I work in the industry, you run the numbers, you look at things, and yes, it's possible. It's absolutely possible. Honestly, I just want these companies to spend a lot of money to research birth control pills for men, because I don't want to pay no child support if I fuck in the future. Well, that doesn't have a whole lot to do with game streaming, but that does have a lot to do with our next topic on this week's podcast. So stick around. I'm gonna circle back around to your comment there, Skills. Zimmertrax. Oh, I believe I got unfollowed from you. Refollow. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'll look you up later. So that's my thing on streaming. So since you've just given me a segue into our next topic, I'm just going to go ahead and pull my image up for that one, because I do have an image for that one. So this is related to streaming in a very different way. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on this topic, guys. I'm really not. But I do want to talk about it. So this is about a Twitch streamer This is about a different kind of game streaming. This is about watching live streams, which, what you guys are doing right now. Some of you are listening to this podcast or watching it on YouTube. But anyway, so this is about, where's my graphic? There it is. So this is about a Twitch streamer. I forget her name. I'm not gonna quote it. I think this is a grab at attention. But anyway, I'll get y'all's opinions before I put mine in there. But as you can see in this photo right here, I have a Twitch streamer whose name I forget, and I'm not looking it up. I'm not giving her the attention. But for those of you who can't see the video, there's a Twitch streamer holding a child. She breastfed her child on stream. And of course, this got her massive views and sparked this massive debate on, breastfeeding on stream. Where's breastfeeding acceptable? And what constitutes, because Twitch does have rules against nudity and against, sexual conduct. And this sparked the debate on whether or not there was anything sexual with breastfeeding. And that's a debate that's been around for a while. I think it's, I think it's more, what about the fact that most people wouldn't be able to enjoy due to their slow-ass internet? That's not most people, but we'll go back to streaming here in a second. That's so weird. I mean, did she really have to do it on stream? Yeah, she did it on stream, and it was very much intentional. It was very much intentional. No, and that's my point. See, I think it's very circumstantial. If you want my opinion on it, like, in all 50 states right now, breastfeeding in public is legal. Some states have different rules to it than others, though. So when you leave the hospital, I have children. My wife gave birth to our children. And when we left the hospital in my state, they provide you, when you leave the hospital, with a breastfeeding cover that you can put in a bag, or it folds up real small. You can fit in your purse or wherever. These girls, put it in a diaper bag. These girls carry it with them. And when you have to breastfeed in public, because yes, the child needs to eat. It is natural, and the child does need to eat. And there are emergencies where you can't get to a bathroom, you can't get out of public. There's no safe place for you to do it, so you just need to, right where you are, take care of this. They give you this cover that you pull out of your diaper bag, you unfold, you put it on like a fucking apron, but it comes all the way up, and it's meant to cover you and the child. And then you can see underneath it, and you put your child up under there, and you do your thing. And then you can sit on a park bench covered and let the child do its thing. I'm not saying that women shouldn't be able to breastfeed in public. Look, I am the type of guy who, I'm all for the free the nipple movement. I think women should be around and walk around topless. If you can see my nipples, I should be allowed to see yours. I mean, that's only fair, right? The problem is our society isn't at the point there. Like, until that becomes legal and normalized, where people are just so used to seeing boobs that they don't sexually excite you anymore. I won't say they won't sexually excite you anymore, but they don't get you stared at. When there's boobs, when you can just see boobs at any point in time, seeing a shirtless dude in public is going to get him some looks, but not the same kind of looks a shirtless chick would get. But if you make it legal and chicks can walk around shirtless all the time, just like guys can, then you'll get to the point where people are going to look, but they're not going to look the same way they look now. And once it's become normal and people just don't make a big deal out of it anymore, then they're not going to make a big deal out of breastfeeding. They're not going to make a big deal out of any of that stuff. But we're not there yet. I feel like they're trying to skip steps in this process. As far as the breastfeeding on Twitch thing, I think that was very much for attention. There was no circumstance, like right now, if you breastfeed in public, at least in my state, and I know it's legal in all 50 states, but at least in my state, there are still rules that go with it. You can't just whip your tits out anywhere, and as long as you're holding a baby, you're fine. There are designated places you have to be, or, circumstances you have to follow in order to just do it. You can't just in line at Walmart where it could inconvenience others. You have to step off to the side. You have to, they have benches and stuff you can sit on in places where, the safety of the child is concerned, etc., the health of the child, blah, 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 etc. That's all factored in. It also needed to be dire need. In other words, like, you had to have no other choice. yeah, it's legal. You're not going to get arrested if you do it, but it was one of those, you had to have no other choice. Bathroom was occupied. You couldn't get to a restroom. You couldn't get out of public. It had to happen right there. You had no other choice. Streaming on Twitch, of course she had options. There's absolutely no reason for you to breastfeed your kid on Twitch other than for attention, other than for those sweet, sweet views. Because you can click a button. You click a button and turn your camera off. And now you don't see what I'm doing. You don't see if I'm breastfeeding. I could have my dick out right now. You don't know. You don't fucking know. What am I doing? Ooh, what am I doing? See, I pressed a button. I turned my camera off. You don't know. It would have been that easy for her to do the same thing. She could have stepped off camera. She was actually streaming with a friend. So it's her and another girl on stream when it happened. It's not even like you had to leave your stream unoccupied where you could lose viewers. If she was worried about losing viewers and she didn't want to leave her stream because she was having a good stream, just take a moment. Tell your friend you're streaming with, I'll be right back. She's going to answer y'all's questions. And you guys, they can keep talking to her. But when she did it, the screenshot of when she did it, because Twitch already took down all of the clips that people made of it, and now there's a big debate around it. But the screenshot of where she did it, where people took screenshots, you can Google it. In the bottom right-hand corner of the screen is a link to all her social media stuff, specifically her Instagram. She had that pretty big and bold and easy to find her on Instagram. So this was clearly a push for attention. Man, honestly, I look at booty, which like skinny jeans and shit gets me a boner. It's probably the same as tits, I think. I'll probably just be a normal sooner or later. Yeah, it would become a normal thing sooner or later if you just made it legal for girls to show their nipples the same way guys can. But it's already so weird in the fact that it's not that they can't show breast. It's that they can't show that one specific part of the breast, the nipple. Like, you can cover that with a fucking piece of electrical tape or a piece of duct tape and you're fine. You've technically broken no laws. And people are going to give you weird looks, and some establishments have their own dress codes, but as far as just being out in public on the sidewalk, you can't be arrested for that. So it's real weird that you can show boobs but can't show boobs. But another streamer, who I will name because she's because she's famous enough that it adds context to it if I name her. Casey Tron, who's kind of known as being a booby streamer, if you will. And we all know what we mean by booby streamers. I see a lot of these articles talking about booby streamers as just calling them just a girl streamer. That's not what a booby streamer is. It's not, all girl streamers aren't fucking booby streamers. Don't put them in a box. So don't, because I've seen articles that put booby streamers in quotation marks and use it as a way to describe girl streamers. It's used as a description for girl streamers. No, it's not used as a description for girl streamers. My wife streams with me all the fucking time. She's not a booby streamer. No one's ever called her that. No one's ever thought she was that. I'm talking about the girls who purposefully stream in the skimpiest fucking clothing possible. You know, get in there in a fucking tank shop and a tank top 2 sizes too small. With their tits about to pop out of them at any time. And that's why they get the views. Because there's little 12, 13-year-olds jump on Twitch. You know, maybe their mom's got Net Nanny on there or something, so they can't see boobs. They can't go to porn sites. You know, they've got a parental filter on, but they can go to Twitch. So they get on Twitch and they see this girl that they can interact with, that they can talk to, who looks like if she leans too far in one direction or the other, those tits are going to fall out. And that's what gets them going. That's why they're there. They're waiting for that to happen. Some of them are there to troll, sure. They do get a lot of trolls. But anyway, she has declared and gotten a few other girl streamers on board as a way to fight for girls' rights to dress however they want on Twitch and not be shamed for it. You know, because she's tired of being called a slut and that this shouldn't be a stereotype and they should be able to dress however they want. And I say, yeah, to a point. I mean, Twitch is ages 13 and up. You should dress appropriately. You know, if you wouldn't wear what you're wearing on Twitch around a 13-year-old in public outside your home, you should do it in your home because you know 13-year-olds are watching you. But anyway, she started on her Twitter. She announced that she's going to do make it official. She's doing Slut Stream Day. So she doesn't want you to call her slut, but she's going to call herself slut. Anyway, yeah, she doesn't want to be called a slut. This is all about rights, but she's doing it for charity. So she's hiding it behind a charity stream, where the purpose of the stream is for her and these other girl streamers to get up on stream in the skimpiest clothing they can possibly get away with, and just stream like that. See how many donations they get, and it'll probably work, and it'll be great for charity. They'll probably get a lot of money, but you don't stop the world from calling you a slut by announcing you're doing a slut stream day. That's like O.J. Simpson doesn't prove he's not a murderer by throwing a Halloween murder party. Like, I think that's where I'm just going to stop that one. Jesus Christ. But I'll circle back to your comment on people's internet speed real quick, because I do have a link about that in the last week's podcast. I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but in last week's podcast, broadbandnow.com, which analyzes all broadband on the internet, released their stats for 2018 on what the average internet was, and they broke it down by the average internet speed per country, and then they broke it down per state. So the average person, so when you say most people's internet, that's not accurate. The average person in America has an internet speed high enough to do Google Stadia, high enough to do the 4K version of Google Stadia. In fact, only one state in all 50 states, this includes Alaska, which is way out in the middle of fucking nowhere, and Hawaii, which is an island. There's only one state in all of the US where the average internet speed was lower than the requirement for Stadia. So the average American, most people, can stream Google Stadia 4K. Most can. Now, in the area you live, that you may see most people can't, but you know, you may live in that one state. There were a few states where it was lower, but most people in the world. This is why game streaming's gonna become a thing, whether you like it or not, because the world as a whole is ready. Even if the internet where you live or in your little town or in your little state isn't ready, the rest of the world fucking is. Google ain't just servicing you. Do you really think Google spent millions? That you not just Google, PlayStation, Xbox. Do you really think these companies are spending millions? Even Amazon's working on one. Do you really think these companies are all spending millions of dollars in tech and infrastructure without doing any market research to see if there's a market there to make that money back? Of course not. These stats are easy to find. They know what's out there. Google's taken it a step further by trying to provide people with slow internet, with gigabit service. They have their own infrastructure they're building. So that'd be a good thing, actually. That'd be awesome if you could, if they did do a Netflix for gaming type thing and they start building their own infrastructure. Google Fiber is the next town over from me. My town's going to be next. And as soon as it gets here, as soon as I can get gigabit internet with Google, I'm getting it, man. And you know what? I would love for them to do a bonus or a deal where if I subscribe to their internet, I get Stadia service for free. You know? I fucking want that. Yeah, Google's been an ISP for a while. So all these people acting like the infrastructure isn't there for streaming and acting like streaming's not going to be a thing, the world isn't ready yet, are obviously not willing to step outside their little fucking bubble that they live in. Because the infrastructure's there. The speeds are there. The average internet speed in America is 95. 95 megabits down. You only need 30 to 40 megabits down to stream in 4K on Google Stadia. If they're able to actually deliver on the promises they made at E3. Now, until we see it in action, sure, I understand the skepticism. But right now, if they're able to deliver, and from all the people who tried it at E3, they are, from people that played Project Stream, it seemed possible. If they're able to deliver on what they're promising, then that means 80% of America will be able to stream Google Stadia at 4K or better. You know, we'll be able to have the best possible experience. 90% of America will be able to have a 1080p experience, and almost 100%, barring a few small places, will be able to do the 720p. So it's not like people won't have access to the service. Yeah, but Google's been pushing it out, and they just finished doing the town next to mine. My town's next, so I'm currently waiting for that to get here. Congrats on getting your citizenship skills king, by the way. I'll announce that as part of the podcast, so it's immortalized here for all our listeners. Skills King has gotten his citizenship. So if you guys want to be part of the community discussion podcast, which we do about once a month, like this week, every Tuesday midnight it's streamed live, and once a month I do read your comments, and we have a hey, let's just see what's been going on this month in gaming kind of deal. So that's tonight's stream. Damn, it's actually pretty cool. Yeah, so when you sit down and you actually look at, you stop indoctrinating yourself, you stop going down that YouTube rabbit hole of Google Stadia will fail, because YouTubers want Google. I try to explain this to people. There's people who trust all those YouTuber gaming sites. There's gaming pundits, whatever you want to call them, that they're kind of biased, and that most of them are already angry with Google to begin with because of YouTube's restrictions. And I don't blame them. These are YouTubers who have been streaming for at least, who have been making YouTube videos, who've been YouTubers for at least the last 5 years or more in most cases. You know, and they make their living off YouTube, and then the adpocalypse happened and they lost 40% of their income, and they've been fighting to get it back ever since. So yes, they're angry with Google. So this is them letting out frustration mostly. That's what a lot of these videos are. This is them just letting out frustration and saying, God damn it, Google, this is what you've been working on, and you ain't been helping us YouTubers, and this is just another thing that's going to affect you. I get their frustration, but I really wish they wouldn't spread misinformation. Because it's a lot of them quote stats that are inaccurate. They don't cite their sources. They don't throw up any actual graphs, any actual data. They present you with no actual data. They're all just speculation. But if you take the time to actually look up the data, which, yes, Google did, yes, Xbox did, yes, PlayStation did, yes, all these companies did before they decided they were going to try to launch a service that requires this kind of infrastructure. Of course, they're going to make sure the infrastructure is there. And they did this research, and it takes you all of 2 seconds to research it, and if you really don't trust Google, you can Bing it. But the point is, yeah, it's there. Streaming 4K isn't as hard as you think it would be. Yeah, I mean, streaming 4K video games is going to be harder than streaming 4K television. Absolutely. Because you have to, obviously the game has to be processed and compressed and then shipped to you, where you can then put in inputs and send it back. So it's a two-way street, streaming a video game in 4K, whereas streaming a movie in 4K is just them sending you the video. All you need to do is receive it. There's no input from you needed. There's no back and forth. It's a little easier for video. But to act like it's impossible to do with games, you're out your fucking mind. Game streaming first became a thing in 2010, and back then it was very much a work in progress, and people were like, well, hey, in 10 years, this will probably be the new normal. We know it's been almost 10 years. So, yeah, we've reached that point where they're going to try to make it normal. You should not be shocked by this. People knew this was coming, and I, for one, am excited for it. I don't want to spend hundreds of dollars in hardware every time a new game comes out, or every time, a new generation of games comes out. On PC, you actually spend more, because not only is it more expensive, but games on PC evolve. They don't wait for the next generation of games before they become more intensive. So you could find yourself in a position on PC where if you want to play those games at the highest settings all the time, you're going to have to, every few months, buy a new piece of hardware and upgrade something. Your RAM, your video card, something. And if you're a console gamer, every 5 years you got to buy a new console, or you got to buy a new accessory, or you got to buy a new this, you got to buy a new that. Even the consoles update themselves. You want to play in 4K on PlayStation, well, then you had to go out and buy the Pro version. Even if you already owned a PlayStation or Xbox, you had to buy the X. If you already owned a regular Xbox One. Yeah, so the amount of money you spend in hardware just to get the best gaming experience, to play these games the way they were meant to be played, on the way we're doing it now, is insanity. It's ridiculous. And I, for one, am tired of playing it. I like the idea of Google providing me with a service where I can play at the best possible setting if I want. As long as I have the internet to support it, I can play at the best possible setting and only have to buy the game. There's nothing to buy with a streaming service. Google Stadia only requires a Chrome web browser. Now that's the biggest advantage to Stadia over Microsoft and Xbox and PlayStation's version is there's nothing to buy with Stadia. I mean, you can play this shit on a fucking Chromebook, you can play it on a phone, you can play anywhere there's a Chrome web browser. With Xbox and PlayStation's version, I'm sure they're going to make you buy a console. They're going to use it as a selling point for their next console. We're probably another 5 years away from them having a service that doesn't require a purchase. But that's the best part about Stadia is you can just sign up for the service. They have a free version of the service. You can even try it before you buy it. You sign up for the free version of the service. You use the service to stream a free-to-play game like Warframe, and you test it before you buy it to find out, can my internet support this? Is this going to be worth it for me to buy a game on? How many other game companies do that? PlayStation doesn't mail you a demo unit to put in your house to find out, hey, do I like PS4 or not? And they're not going to refund you if you buy it and try to return it at the store. Xbox ain't doing that. You have to buy the hardware first to even try it. With Google, there's nothing to buy. There's nothing to pay to even try it. And if it works for you, which I'm hoping it'll work for me, then you don't have to buy any hardware anymore. 100% of your gaming budget can go to just buying the games. And even if you have to buy the games instead of get them on a monthly subscription like Netflix, you just have to keep buying them like normal. The amount of money you save from not buying hardware means you can just buy all the games you want and probably still break even. You can buy a lot of games and still not go over the amount of money you would have spent on a console. You know, you can buy 10 games and you're at console prices. So you'd have to buy 10 games on Stadia before you've spent more money on Stadia than you would have spent buying a next-gen console. But yeah, the free version's not 4K at 1080 at 60 frames per second. You're right, Mythical MW, pointing out that yes, there is a caveat there. If you're only going to game in 1080p, just get the free version and buy the games you want. If 4K is something that's important to you, then yes, there's a $10 a month subscription fee, but that subscription fee does also give you free games every month like PlayStation Plus or Xbox Live. That's another thing, speaking of subscription fees, is Google Stadia doesn't charge you to play online. So if you're playing a multiplayer game, there's no subscription needed to play the multiplayer game. You could get the free version of Stadia, game in 1080p, and then buy a copy of Call of Duty and just play it online as much as you want. No more money spent after that $60, unless you're spending it on loot boxes or something in game. But as far as actual service goes, that's it. I don't see how that's a bad idea. I don't see why people would not want to at least try that. And I think it's a great option for gaming that I would love to see. I currently have to buy 2 of everything. Because I game with my wife, so I had to build 2 PCs. I gotta buy 2 copies of Destiny. I gotta buy 2 of every expansion. I gotta buy 2 copies of Minecraft. I gotta buy 2 copies of every single game we play. So it would be nice to not have to buy 2 pieces of hardware. I'm sure I'm still going to have to buy 2 copies of the game, but it'd be nice if I didn't have to buy a new video card for her computer and for my computer when a new game comes out that we can't run. I would love every year when tax time came around, I got my tax money back, if I didn't have to spend my tax money building computers so that we'd be good for the next year. When I could just spend all that tax money on other shit. I could spend all that tax money on games. I could put 100% of that. I could buy so many games. We could both have a library of what we want instead of having to pick and choose. So the freedom that it offers. That will probably be their theoretical resolution. Doesn't mean every game will be that all the time. Yeah, it just might hit it. I mean, some of it's going to depend on the game. Some games just don't run in 4K very well, and that's just the game itself. There's a lot of indie games that when you put them in 4K, they just don't run very well. We're not quite at the point where 4K is considered standard. There's still a vast majority of gamers who game in 1080p and haven't bothered to upgrade to 4K yet. Mainly console gamers, but that's a large portion of the market right now. So as long as it looks great in 1080p, which is currently what I game in, because I stream, and when I stream in 1080p. So of course I also game in 1080p, so you guys don't get this weird compressed version of what I see. I have a 4K monitor. I do game in 4K when I'm not streaming, but when I'm streaming, most of the time I do game in 1080p. So it's not that big a deal for me. Good day, mate. And my co-host showing up 10 minutes before the end of the podcast. Aussie the Aussie, everybody. Say hello, Aussie.
Hey, I had things to do.
It's all right. It's all right. We're doing more of a community. This is the community discussion podcast this week. No real topic in mind. We're just whatever people want to talk about. Reading comments, reading emails, getting caught up on all the community stuff. So, there was one last story I wanted to talk about, which I'm going to throw a graphic up here on the stream. We've talked about all the stuff you guys want to talk about, and let's get this up here. So it's finally happened. They've finally tested the waters on how far they can push this gambling in video games thing. With GTA 5 just straight up putting a casino, an online video game.
Oh yeah, I've seen this.
Yeah, and I guess now we have to have an argument on what constitutes gambling. Because if you're going by the legal definition of what constitutes gambling, then it's you winning something that's worth money while playing a game of chance. It's the reason why even the state lottery here isn't considered gambling. It's considered a sweepstakes. It's not considered gambling. Because most of the time you don't win anything that's worth money on it. You do have the ability to win money, so it is still legally gambling. You do have to be 18 to play it, but it is legal to play the state lottery even in states where gambling is illegal, because they have this weird distinction, and it's I'm getting into the point where I'm doing this thing where it's hard to describe American law to foreigners, but they have this for those of you who aren't from America, they have this weird distinction in our law between what is gambling and what is a sweepstakes. Now, honestly, I don't think there's a fucking difference. They're both games of chance. Just one, you get instant gratification. You pull the lever on a slot machine, you will instantly know if you won or not, and you can continually pull it over and over again. To whereas the lottery, you buy a lottery ticket and you wait until the lottery is announced. And that's why it's considered a sweepstakes, because there's no instant gratification. So there's no chance of you standing in a gas station or somewhere that sells lottery tickets and just buying lottery ticket after lottery ticket until you find a winner, because you don't know which one is a winner until the lottery is announced. So you have more of an ability to stop yourself. Most people buy their one ticket and they have their one ticket. So that's why they don't consider it gambling, because you don't instantly know whether or not you won.
And then have the ability to go again.
Yeah, to go again. There's no go again with the lottery.
You can't keep pulling that lever.
Yeah, there's no go again with the lottery. I mean, you can do that kind of with scratch-offs, but the payouts on those have to be below a certain payout for it not to be considered gambling. So most people don't do that with scratch-offs because you're never going to win big with a scratch-off. You're never going to win the lottery with a scratch-off, so that's not what they do.
Oh, you can, but most people know that your chances of actually getting that payoff is astronomically low.
Yeah, and another thing they do is they print the odds of winning, even the scratch-offs, on the back of the scratch-off. So you buy your scratch-off ticket, you flip it over, you can read the odds. Now that's what gambling in video games isn't doing, because they don't consider themselves gambling. They don't have any legal need to put the odds of what they're doing. In most countries, now in some countries they do, like in China, they have to put the odds of anything they do that requires a purchase and is won with chance. So this includes loot boxes, in-game slot machines, anything that uses an in-game economy that you can buy with real money. But the way they get around it is you don't actually win anything in these online casinos that's legally worth real money. I mean, sure, you can make the argument of, well, I'm winning the in-game currency, and the in-game currency has a value because I can purchase that currency. But they say it has no real-world value. So that's the key distinction. Real-world value. It has no real-world value because you can't resell that in-game currency. You can't cash in, so to speak, like you can at a casino where you're winning chips. Now you can walk outside that casino with a stack of chips, and you can't spend them like real money. No business. You can't walk into a Walmart with a stack of casino chips and use it to buy stuff. You have to cash out those chips at the casino for money. And that's where it becomes gambling, because they can cash out the chips. So their argument with video games is there's no way to cash out, so it's not gambling. The money spent is money spent.
I'm sure you could do it with a shady third-party black market system, but that would never happen.
But that's not. We're talking from a legal standpoint, and legally, those markets don't count, because those aren't legal markets in anyway. So that's how they legally get it around the issue. Now, is it in-game gambling? Yeah, it's literally a fucking casino at this point. Of course, it's in-game gambling, and it's even more atrocious in games that don't require an M rating. See, that's if they really want to avoid the gambling in video games becoming a huge issue and becoming a law, if they want to avoid government intervention like they've already gotten in Belgium and they've gotten in China and they're starting to get in other countries, if they really want to avoid that from happening globally, then they got to dial it back a bit. You have to at least try to mask it. You can't just straight up be an online casino. There has to be some self-regulation. Just like in the 90s when they avoided government intervention.
Liability.
Yeah, I mean, just like in the 90s when they avoided government intervention with their own rating system. Because Mortal Kombat started a controversy about whether or not the government would step in and create a rating system and, basically require an ID to buy video games that contain this blah 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 or this or this. And then the ESRB was formed, and they self-regulated. They rate their own games now. And that worked for the most part until now, because the ESRB has no regulation, has no rating system for gambling in the video game. That's not factored in. So you can have a game rated E for everyone that contains gambling mechanics that children could essentially, if their parents weren't paying attention and didn't password protect the purchase option on their PlayStation, a 6-year-old child, playing an E for everyone game that has a loot box in it could spend, and this has happened, it's not hard to find news articles of children who spent thousands of their parents' dollars without realizing it, playing a video game that had mechanics in it that should have never been shown to a child. Now, this mostly happens in the mobile gaming market, and that's why the ESRB really needs to step in. That's where they need to try to regulate things, clean up that cesspool, because otherwise, government regulation doesn't give a shit about mobile market versus AAA gaming market. It doesn't see a difference. Gaming's fucking gaming to them. So if you don't clean up that cesspool that is the mobile gaming market, it's gonna fucking bleed over into the AAA market. It's gonna bleed over into your big money makers. And
it's not going to. It is.
Yeah, it already is. But it's gonna bleed over in the worst ways possible. And I don't mean that. I'm not talking from a consumer perspective. I'm talking from a business perspective. It's gonna bleed over in the worst ways possible to get attention, like it did with Battlefront 2. But it's going to get worse than that if they keep going down the path they're going. So where the governments are going to step in, and they're going to shut this shit down. So they're going to have to. Which, I mean, I'm kind of just at the point where I'm just sitting back on the sidelines, just watching all this shit happen, because I'm just going to let whatever happens happens. Either way this goes, it's going to be good for gaming. It's going to be good for us end user gamers, because either they self-regulate and they dial back on stuff, which means you see less loot boxes in your games, or more open honesty about the loot boxes in your games before you purchase. Good for gamers there. Or the government steps in and regulates it, and these companies have to find other ways to monetize, so loot boxes go away completely. Which, again, good for me. So, that's where I'm at on the gambling thing. Fun fact: the SRB ratings are completely voluntary. Oh yeah, absolutely. But it was done to avoid a mandatory government oversight. A game does not have to submit it doesn't have to submit it to be rated. But the fact that so many people opted in on it.
In some countries, if it doesn't have a rating, it can't be sold.
Yeah,
down here in Australia, if it doesn't have a rating, you can't sell it.
Yeah, and it's like that for a lot of stores, but he's right, it is all completely voluntary. And that's my point. They did it to avoid laws being made. So no, there's no laws made, they self-regulated. But it's kind of one of those unwritten rules, like we have and understand it kind of thing, where here in America, yes, the ratings are completely optional, and you can still sell that game. But good luck finding a place willing to sell your game, a storefront willing to put your game on the shelves if it doesn't have a rating. Now they won't legally get in trouble if they do sell a game with no rating or even a game with an adults only rating. But most places like your Walmart, your Best Buy, your GameStop, they refuse to sell games that either don't have a rating or have an adults only rating, which is why you don't see those in stores. They're absolutely legal to make, they're absolutely legal to sell, and they're absolutely legal to play here in America. But that's how they avoided the government oversight, and the controversy was just them agreeing amongst themselves that we won't. So that's kind of what all this hinges on, is if they want to keep that amount of control they have over the game and market, and they don't want the government to control it, then they have to step in and do something here. Like, it's going to have to happen. Whether that be changing your rating system so that if it includes a gambling or chance mechanic at all, then it gets an M rating. Or there's big Surgeon General type warnings on the boxes. You put a link to the gambling help hotline on the back of it. Something. You gotta do something. Because, Fortnite's obviously... See, and that's where I bring up the point that you don't even need... It doesn't need to be... it's not like you can't have microtransactions in a game that children play. Children play Fortnite all the fucking time. And, most popular game in the world right now. Fortnite. I don't know many children that don't want to play Fortnite. But it's monetization is zero chance involved. There's no loot boxes. There's no game of chance. So even if your kid goes to playing Fortnite and spending your money and you forgot to put a password on it or whatever, he's only going to spend so much. He's going to buy the cosmetics he wants and he's going to be done. He's going to go back to playing the game. It's not like he wants a certain cosmetic and he has to keep buying a box until he gets it. Because that's how this shit always happens. A child who has no concept of the amount of money they're spending, it's just a click of a button for them, will click on a loot box and go, oh, I might get this skin. And they're going to keep buying that loot box until they get it. And that's where the money gets spent. That's not an issue with Fortnite. Because they can just go to the store and see the skin they want and buy the skin. Same thing with Minecraft. Minecraft has its microtransaction store as well. There's no loot boxes in that. Kids get on there and they find the Minecraft skin they want to use and they buy the Minecraft skin and they're fucking done.
Same thing with Warframe.
Yeah, lots of games. Well, I was trying to find games kids play. Roblox does the same thing.
Roblox.
Yeah.
All these games that
are targeted at children,
but are actually doing well.
Yeah, and are targeted at children. So you don't have these, unintentional whales is the industry term they like to use to not say the word children. These unintentional whales where some kid picked up his dad's Xbox controller and started playing a game and just started buying loot boxes until he got the skinny one, spent $3,000 of his dad's money because dad forgot to put a password on it. Parents should obviously monitor what their kids do, but that shouldn't happen. You forgetting to put a password on your Xbox shouldn't cost you $3,000. I can tell you right now as a parent, you should monitor what they do, but you got to give them some freedom at some point too. You need to be able to also show the kid that you have to teach your kid the concept of trust. What kind of psychological effect is that going to have on your kid if you're helicopter parenting all the time and you never trust your kid to do anything on their own? You give them a sheltered life, you're going to ruin the kid. So you can't do that either. I mean, I check things, sure, but I'll forget stuff too. And I'm the kind of guy who understands how parental systems work. I'm a tech-savvy guy. There's a lot of parents who don't even know how to get to those menus. They do need better documentation for those people, but you can't place 100% of the blame on them either. These companies knew what they were doing. And they did it on purpose. And they reap the profit, and they never apologize, and they avoid saying the words children and gambling. They have all these other industry terms. Surprise mechanics. Here we can toss out a recent meme. I'm not tech savvy. I use the honor system with my kids. How's that working out for you? I mean, obviously some of it's there is a parenting factor involved. Obviously you need to raise a child to understand moderation and who's going to game responsibly. You need to teach your kids what this stuff is so that you can trust them not to abuse it. But you can't immediately victim blame either. Like, these companies have to take some responsibility. I'll agree it's not 100% their fault. But it's a lot your fault, though. It's like, to say it's not your fault is just lying. They've shown me some cool new videos. Yeah, those Roblox videos are great. Yeah, but we'll wrap the podcast up here. Those are kind of all the topics you guys brought up in chat and that I wanted to cover. Just the gambling and video games is on a downward spiral, and GTA will have the defense of, well, it's an M-rated game that kids shouldn't have been playing it anyway. And honestly, that's the best thing that could happen right now. Is GTA could be looked at by the government and get in trouble, and its defense in court could be it's an M-rated game, and it could point to its rating system and the fact that it tried to be responsible and that kids shouldn't be playing it in anyway as the way it defends itself in court, because that will cause the courts to go, all right, well, you have a point there, and then they'll legally make that rating system enforced, where you have to be rated M if you have a gambling mechanic in your game. So that's probably, if this goes far enough, that could be the unintended side effect there. It could be used as the catalyst to say, well, this is why it shouldn't be targeted at children. It could be the proof that that the people fighting against this need to prove that kids shouldn't be gambling. It could be the thing that helps set a legal precedent. But you're talking years down the road, because they got some really good lawyers and they fight this stuff really well.
It's like they have an invested interest in it not happening.
Yeah, and they have lobbyists and things like that, of course. There's all that shady politician shit that we're not going to get into, but that happens behind closed doors, where company A donates to politician B's fund enough that politician B looks the other way. It's legal bribery is what I believe lobbyists are, but now you're getting into a whole political discussion. I'm not going to start right here on the podcast. I'm just going to end it right there and thank everybody for listening. Next week, we'll go back to the normal format. I do got some stories I want to cover. Non-Stadia. Yeah, I've got some other stuff on a rant at other than Google Stadia. I think I've covered everything there. So I've got some other stuff that I want to cover.
I mean, that's what he said last time, but
yeah, well, new developments happen, things change, so I had to make an update. So barring no new updates and things I need to address, which if I do will be brief, I do have some other stuff that I want to talk about, some of which we glossed over on this podcast while we were doing the community discussion. But thank you to every viewer on Twitch, YouTube, or any other streaming platform who participated in this month's community discussion podcast. Thank you for being here. Thank you for my co-host for showing up fashionably late to the podcast. And thank you for all those of you who download the podcast, who listen to it when it's not live, listen to it on those Witchin' Wednesday mornings. Thank you for taking me on your drive to work, your drive to school, your commute, your morning run, your morning shit, wherever you happen to be listening to Death Witch. Thank you for putting me in your ear hole. Thank you for being part of this, and we'll see you guys next week.